In this unit, we've been looking at how globalization impacts your identity. In this video, we're going to focus on the interaction of different cultures and how they can have an impact on both collective and individual identities. We keep coming back to that term collective identity. A society is a group of people who are connected for various reasons. Smaller societies are often more cohesive or connected than larger ones. That means they have similar views on things and have a stronger collective identity. Canada is becoming more urbanized. That means people live in cities where they have less cultural connections to each other. Globalization, in a sense, widens our communities. That term global village relates to how we can be so easily connected to people around the world. And this can create conflicts within a society as collective identities become less important than the expression of your individual identity. But global interactions can also soften opinions that may be somewhat less tolerant. For example, the acceptance of multiracial couples or transgendered rights. Okay, let's start with the bad news, the negative impacts of cultural interactions in a globalized world. One of the major issues is the feeling of being less important, being marginalized. In another video, we're going to take a look at the historical experiences of colonization. But even for people who are migrating or moving to Canada, they can experience a sense of marginalization, that their contributions aren't worth as much as those who are part of the mainstream community. We can often see members of those marginalized groups becoming homogenized within the mainstream society in order to try and get rid of those feelings of marginalization, to fit in. To be homogenized means to be the same, so this could be a form of assimilation, which means your culture could disappear. Assimilation can come when people are forced to become like everyone else. In the past, we thought that was a good thing for everybody to be the same. So, for example, a law was passed forbidding teachers from teaching French to students in Alberta because we wanted everybody to be the same, English, both culturally and linguistically. Today, we encourage greater diversity through various government programs. Homogenization can also come from acculturation. That's where cultures adopt the practices of other groups just through their day-to-day interactions. We often see this when immigrant families in Canada push their children to be more like the other kids in their neighborhood. But now let's look at the bright side. Canada is a great example to the world of how cultures can coexist. Remember how I talked about the different legislation that helps us encourage the affirmation of cultural identities? Canada was the first country in the world to adopt an official policy promoting multiculturalism. Our reasonable accommodation legislation states that we must accept cultural differences as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others. In addition, there's a resurgence in the revitalization of cultures. People are celebrating their cultural identity and sharing those aspects of themselves with others. For example, there's a celebration in India called Holi, which is a spring festival where people can throw colored paint on each other in order to celebrate love and good over evil. Recently, Holi celebrations have been popping up in North America, not just among the Indian migrants. We can see Aboriginal people across Canada also affirming their identity. This is a fancy way of saying that they're standing up for what they believe in and have confidence in sharing their culture with others, whereas before, they were told not to celebrate their culture. The coat of arms of our former Governor General, Michaëlle Jean, is another great example of this. She included many aspects of her heritage as an immigrant to Canada. Many see the integration and accommodation of various cultures as a positive side to promoting diversity. However, it can be difficult to find the balance between encouraging diversity and creating a national identity, which is something you'll look at in a lot more detail in Social 20. The accommodation and integration of various groups can lead to aspects of their culture being lost. I have a friend who's Jewish, but her husband's Christian. When I asked them why they didn't celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah, or what some people call Christmaka, she explained that it's very important to her Jewish culture that they don't integrate other cultural practices into their traditions, because the Jewish people have often been the minority in the country they're living in. If they accommodated their practices to the mainstream, their culture could be lost through acculturation. This seemed like a good example to me of how a cultural group can protect their identity. The acculturation or integration of cultural ideas can be a major change for a traditional culture. For example, the greater acceptance of rights of women by immigrants who come to Canada from countries where women don't have very many rights. To me, this is a great thing, but many others might disagree with me. But what I really appreciate is the fact that contact between two different groups can lead to what I think is an even better society by mixing their ideas together. But one thing we must be careful of is to be respectful of traditions. Cultures may adopt an aspect of a traditional society without realizing we could actually be disrespecting those traditions. For example, tattoos are more and more popular in our society, and some people choose to get a tattoo based on a Maori warrior face tattoo. but only those chosen by community leaders in the Maori society have the honor of wearing them. And putting one on your body just because you think it's neat could be disrespecting the tradition and sacredness of them. But others would argue that this is a great way to celebrate diversity. John Tamahir has said, "It is right to tolerate those who want to wear a kilt or a hemp suit, just as it's right to tolerate and respect those who want to wear a moko," that's the tattoo. No one has a monopoly on our unending story of nationhood. Here in Canada, the same question comes when somebody wants to wear a native headdress. So by understanding various issues, we can have a greater appreciation and respect for the different perspectives of globalization's impact on your identity.